Go to PressBoxOnline.com and register a youth team in your community for a chance to be highlighted as the PressBox Youth Team of the Month, sponsored by Sports Authority. Go to PressBoxOnline.com for all the details. Welcome back to Inside PressBox. The NFL Draft is now only a couple weeks away, and PressBox draft expert Matt Zenitz has been keeping an eye on players that could fill some of the Ravens' biggest holes. He's with me in the studio, and Matt, I thank you for being here. And do we have any real update on anything new about what the Ravens might pursue on draft day?
Well, it's pretty much the same thing that we've talked about, I guess, for the past few times that I've been on the show, and the same thing that we've talked about on the blog and just in the paper. Probably 5 or 6 areas that the Ravens could look to target with the pick. Offensive line seems to be the most popular choice, whether it is indeed a guard.
Well, I mean, it's also the one that John Harbaugh mentioned at the owners' meeting the other day. In that interview with Jeff Zrebiec, he said, we need to get better in the offensive line.
And it hurts that they missed out on Evan Mathis in free agency, trying to fill the void left by Ben Grubb. So have an obvious need in the interior of that offensive line, both at guard and at center. But along with that, do have some other, I won't call them pressing needs, but they have some other needs as well. And in no specific order: wide receiver, another pass rusher, middle linebacker, safety. You can go down the list, and there are some other needs that they need to address.
Let me ask you the key question here to me. They signed Matt Burke, so they're going to go with Burke this year for the most part. If they draft a Peter Kahns from Wisconsin, the best center supposedly in the draft, could he play a season at left guard?
I think so. I don't see any reason why not. Kahn certainly has the ability, a very talented player, very good, very adept at run blocking, adequate enough as a pass blocker, and just somebody who is a very good technician along the offensive line. I think somebody who would work at whatever position they put him at, touted as a very hard worker during his time at Wisconsin, so I'm sure he would be willing to make that transition for the short term while Matt Burke is in there. But even if Peter Kahns is there, don't be surprised if they do look at a guard like Cordy Glenn from Georgia, somebody who has moved up draft boards, especially with his showing at the Combine.
Hey, one player that stands out for going the opposite direction is this guy from Arizona State, Vontaze Burfict. Has anybody, I mean, his fall is kind of meteoric because he was a top 15 player going into the senior year.
The best middle linebacker in the country.
And now there's talk he might not even be drafted. Rather than talk about what happened to him, has there been a player or a couple players that are coming out of nowhere, Matt?
Well, there's no specific player that comes to mind that has had that catastrophic of a jump as Burfict has a fall, but one player that immediately comes to mind in terms of really helping themselves throughout this whole process, Stephen Hill from Georgia Tech, the wide receiver, somebody who was in very much a run-first offense at Georgia Tech, the triple option offense. Didn't put up, I guess, very big numbers in terms of catches. His yards per catch and his yards were rather impressive, but a player with a lot of physical ability. Didn't translate into extreme production at Georgia Tech, like I said, but when you look at his frame and his combination of size and speed, 6'4", 215, running a 4.3 with a 40-inch vertical jump, that by itself intrigues teams right there, and it did at the Combine. But when you combine that with the fact that you look at his deficiencies and the fact that he isn't a refined route runner, or at least wasn't on film at Georgia Tech and struggled catching the football, he's improved in both of those areas and really showcased that at their pro day. He's helped himself a lot, and will probably go in the first round. Got
about 25, 30 seconds. Will Ozzie, as always, end up with 1 or 2 players from the SEC?
We'll find out. There are definitely some SEC players of interest. Dante Hightower, probably the biggest name out of those to keep an eye on in the first couple of rounds.
All right, you can read his blog. It's the NFL Draft Report, and it's sponsored by our friends at Royal Farm. And we thank Matt Zenitz for being here. We'll be back to wrap things up, so don't go away. Inside PressBox is presented by Friedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. Go to Friedmont.com now for all of your mortgage needs.